Hello again, everyone. Edwin Leonard back once again. In this YouTube NFL prediction segment, I'm going to be giving you my 2018 Week 6 NFL picks and analysis. Now, on the first game, I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles to beat the New York Giants. Philadelphia will be on the road. They've dropped two straight. It'll be a short week for them. However, they are number 2 in rushing yards allowed per game. It's just hard for me to envision them losing 3 straight. And then to the Giants as well. Now, the Giants put up a valiant effort in last week's game against Carolina. Did everything but win that game. It really turns out to be a demoralizing loss for them. They're also dead last in defensive sacks. If they can't get to Carson Wentz, it could be a long day for them. They're also number 28 in rushing yards per game. The Eagles are number 2 in rushing yards allowed. Despite the Eagles' struggles, I think that's where that game is going to be run, right in the trenches where the Giants, the running backs, and I think with their offensive line against the Eagles' defensive line, I like the Eagles' defensive line in this one. Odell Beckham Jr. has an opportunity to exploit Philadelphia's secondary. If he could really do that and the receivers can do that, the Giants have a chance this one. I think it's going to be tight, but I like the Eagles in a close one. Next game. I'm going to take the Atlanta Falcons at home to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But this might be the toilet bowl game of this week. You have Atlanta right now at 1-4. They are allowing nearly 33 points per game. Wide receiver Julio Jones might be Matt Ryan's hope in this particular contest. Now, you have Tampa Bay right now. They are averaging near the top in terms of passing yards per game. They're also allowing nearly 35 points per game. They are really... And they're also allowing about 358 passing yards per game as well. Just one defensive interception. I think the fact that this is such a desperate time for Atlanta right now, being just 1-4. They certainly have underachieved tremendously. I think they know this could be their season right here. They lose this game, they go to 1-5. They fall in too big of a hole in that NFC South to New Orleans. It's going to be very hard to get out of that. I do like Atlanta and their urgency, and I do like them to win at home in this game. Next game. Well, this game was like ambivalent city at first. Cincinnati's going to be at home against Pittsburgh. I was going back and forth on this. I'm going to reluctantly take the Bengals to win this one at home. Pittsburgh's been an up-and-down team this season. You have Cincinnati, very strong, cohesive play. They're very balanced, virtually no weaknesses. They might very well be the second or third, or they may be the third best team in the NFL actually right now. I would say after perhaps the Rams and Chiefs. Now, Cincinnati right now 4-1. They are surprising a lot of people, I think. Right now in their conference games, they are 3-0. They will be without tight end Tyler Eifert. I think that can factor in strongly in this one. However, as I stated before, Pittsburgh has been kind of vacillating. They've been going up and down. They had a good game last week against Atlanta, but can they replicate that defensive effort this week against Cincinnati and having to do so on the road? The thing about Pittsburgh, though, is that despite their struggles, and they are so surreptitiously have become the number 1 sack team in the NFL in terms of defensive sacks with 19. And you don't really hear much about him, but T.J. Watt, right now is leading the NFL in sacks with 6 right now. Pittsburgh is also just 0-2-1 in their conference games this season. I do like Cincinnati to take this one home. I think their offense is going to be the key over Pittsburgh's secondary. So I do like the Bengals to win at home. Next game. I'm going to take the LA Chargers to win on the road against the Cleveland Browns. Seems like whenever I'm going to go against Cleveland, they're probably going to win. But the LA Chargers right now, they are number 6 in total offense. They're averaging about 27 points per game. You have quarterback Philip Rivers. You always have a chance to win with him. I think they're starting to get into their groove right now, the Chargers. They might be ready to go on a little bit of a run. They were, a number of people thought they would contend at least for the Super Bowl this year, at least to come out of the AFC. Now, the upstart Cleveland Browns, I can't believe they actually have 2 wins right now. It's almost surreal, I would say, for me and people that are actually Cleveland Browns fans especially. But the last time the Cleveland Browns actually won consecutive games was in 2014. But their opportunistic defense has been tremendous. So, I mean, they are +8 in turnover differential. That is either at the top of the NFL or very close to the top right now. And they are playing, as far as on the defensive end, exceptionally well. The offense is a little suspect. I just have a hard time picking them because I just don't know if they're going to be able to score enough points this week to be able to defeat the Chargers. I do like the Chargers to win on the road. It should be a competitive game, I believe, but I do like the Chargers on the road. Next game. I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks to win on the road over the Oakland Raiders. Of course, the Seattle defense is dismantled, and we know we're without Earl Thomas. I think Russell Wilson should have a fairly decent game. He's going to have to win a lot in this game with a lot of his mobility and scrambling ability. Oakland, of course, does have an abysmal pass rush, and now Derek Carr may be one of the leaders in the NFL in yards thrown, but he also has 11 interceptions, which I believe is #1 in the NFL. He has just made a number of bad decisions with the ball. I'm sure he has a lot of passing attempts. I understand interceptions are going to come with that, but it's still a little bit too much. I think the Seattle defense could still be good enough to create, cause some disruption for Derek Carr. And I do believe Seattle will win this game. They have been more competitive than Oakland has this year on average. Only win Oakland has was against Cleveland. Seattle played the Rams very well last week, did everything but beat them. I think they should be able to beat Oakland. I like Seattle on the road in this one. Next game. Well, everything seems to point to Chicago, but I'm actually going to take Miami to win this one at home. Miami has lost 2 in a row. They've allowed, I don't remember the exact amount, but close to 65 points, if not 65 points, in their last 2 games. The defense, after starting out very sterling, they were very strong in those first 3 games, has just fallen apart in the last 2. Last week looked like they had the game won against the Bengals, and they bungled it. They found a way to lose it. They do have 10 defensive interceptions, though. Chicago, you're talking about a relentless defense and a team that is really, they might be the surprise of the NFL at this point in the season. Relentless defense. They're also, you look at Chicago's +6 turnover differential. Khalil Mack has had a sensational season. They've given up only about 16 points per game. #1 in total defense. And you're talking about they're only allowing about 64 rushing yards per game. This defense is going to come to play in this one as well. I think something about going to Miami and having to transition with the weather, a road game, the fact Miami has certain urgency right now. This is really, even though it's fairly early in the season, I see this as a must win. They were plastered by New England earlier this year. They don't want to, they may be in first place right now, or I should say tied for first, I think, right now with New England, but they lose this game and say New England is likely going to win their game this coming week. They don't want to just drop out of this race too quickly. I like Miami to win this one in a very close one. Next game. Well, I'm going to take the Minnesota Vikings to win at home over the Arizona Cardinals. Minnesota, they got a good win last week against defending Super Bowl champions. I think this might propel them the rest of the way. You're talking about Kirk Cousins and Stephon Diggs right there on the offense. And they are, the offense is just playing, very well. The Minnesota might be underachieving overall this season, but they're also, they're #3 in passing yards per game. And you look at Arizona, they're near the middle of the pack in terms of their pass defense, just number 13 in their pass defense, just 4-6 on the road since 2000. 17, and they're really the only win Arizona has this season is against the 49ers. To me, it just seems to me like Minnesota has been playing better this season. Arizona is still, I mean, they're obviously one of the worst teams in the NFL, despite that win they got last week over the 49ers. I do like the Minnesota Vikings to win this one at home. Well, next game, I'm going to take the New York Jets reluctantly to beat the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, you look at the New York Jets. I don't know how they trounced the Denver Broncos. I wasn't aware about Denver's abysmal road record in recent time. They were something like 1-10 on the road going into that game against the Jets, and I mean, I was not cognizant of that. But the Jets, I mean, they showed something with their running game, looked fairly inept up until that point last week when they just run rampant over that Denver Broncos defense, which I thought was going to contain the Jets offense, which is why I thought Denver would actually win. But the Jets showed something a little bit last week. Maybe this will help them the rest of the season, and it'll be like a confidence and morale booster. I mean, you look at the Indianapolis Colts, they're just 2-9 on the road since 2017. They're number 18 in rushing yards allowed per game. I could see the Jets having another big game on the ground against them. Now, you look at one bright spot for the Colts, though, is linebacker Darius Leonard, who is leading the NFL in tackles right now. But other than that, they're going to have some luck in this game, I think, to win this game. If Andrew Luck shows up and he plays superlative game, they could very well win it. I do like the Jets being at home to win this one, though. Hold on a minute, people. Sorry about that. Next game. I'm going to take the Carolina Panthers to win on the road against the Washington Redskins. You look at Carolina, I mean, they did put up a number of points last week. They beat the Giants at the end, miraculous win, 63-yard field goal, won the game 33-30, won over the G-men. You look at Carolina, they are right now, I mean, when you're talking about Cam Newton and their offensive weaponry is still, I mean, very dangerous. They've had a very good season up till this point. You look at the Redskins, they are, I mean, their pass defense last week was torched and exploited by Drew Brees and company for 349 yards. Very uncharacteristic of them, and they got annihilated last week. It's just, I expect Washington to bounce back and play better and play a close game against Carolina, but I think the Carolina offense is just going to be a little bit too much for the Redskins to handle. Now, so I do like the Carolina Panthers to win this one on the road. Well, the next game, I'm going to take the Houston Texans to win at home over the Buffalo Bills. They've won 2 straight. Houston's starting to get into rhythm, I think, and play cohesively. They're starting to play, I think, like the team that others anticipated them to really be. You're talking about DeAndre Hopkins as one of the #1 in receiving yards right now in the NFL. J.J. Watt, one of the best defenders in the league. And, I mean, you're talking about Deshaun Watson, who has potential to be very explosive. I don't know if he's really back to where he was last season at the beginning before he got injured, but I think he's going to start to evolve and progress as the season moves on. Now, you look at the Buffalo Bills, you talk about a mercurial up-and-down team. They seem to play to the level of competition. They're only averaging about 13 points per game. That's all they needed last week to beat the Titans, though. They're also, you look at Buffalo, they just don't have any really passing attack on the number 32 passing yards per game. 4-7 on the road since 2017. I think right now with Houston, their main proponents really healthy, being at home, it's going to be very tough to beat them. I see Houston keeping their streak going and winning their 3rd consecutive game. I do like the Texans at home. Next game. I'm going to take the LA Rams to win on the road over the Denver Broncos. Now, the Rams last week, I mean, I've talked about, the Rams being arguably the most complete team in the NFL with virtually no deficiencies or weaknesses. But the defense did show some vulnerability last week. They are one of the best teams in total offense. Running back Todd Gurley is a beast. He will, I think he might very well torch this Denver and eviscerate this Denver run defense. The Denver run defense is really underachieved. This was a team I thought was going to have maybe one of the better defenses in the NFL this season. They're just number 30 in rushing yards allowed per game. They've also lost 3 consecutive games. They've given up 88 points in that stretch. Their defense is reeling right now. Now, the fact they're at home, they may be able to put something together where they could at least maybe make this a close game. But you're talking about the Rams, a team that may very well come out of the NFC and go to the Super Bowl. I don't see them losing to the Denver Broncos in this particular game, considering especially how Denver has been in recent weeks. So I do like the Rams to win this one on the road. Well, next game, I'm going to take the Jacksonville Jaguars to win on the road over the Dallas Cowboys. I think this could be another tight game, actually. Jacksonville right now is really, they're one of the, in terms of passing yards allowed per game, one of the better teams in the NFL. Now, Blake Bortles for Jacksonville had 4 INTs last week, very uncharacteristic of him. I don't expect him to duplicate that performance. I expect the cornerback Jalen Ramsey and the other people in the pass defense, the secondary, to play very well. I don't think they're going to give up 30 points to Dallas. Dallas right now, it seems like they're having a problem with Ezekiel Elliott. It's either they're not giving him, whether it's a game where they don't give him enough rushing attempts and incorporate him enough into the offense, or he's just not maximizing, his carries. He had like 20 carries last week for 54 yards or something. And the thing about, there's some controversial play calling they're talking about with Jason Garrett making a play that calling something, a punter, whatever it was, and say to people commenting on it and critiquing it, saying maybe he shouldn't have done that. I don't know if it might be a little bit too much distractions going on with this team right now, and their receiving core is not nearly as good as it had been in recent seasons. I do like Jacksonville to win on the road. Well, next game, I'm going to take the Tennessee Titans at home to win over the Baltimore Ravens. Now, Tennessee seems to be one of those paradoxical teams. They're a team, it seems like they play to the level of the competition. They lost to Buffalo last week. I still can't believe that actually took place. One of their receivers dropped a pass, looked like what should have been a sure touchdown, 6 points. It just wasn't meant to be. And really, you look at this team, but yet they're able to beat some of the premier teams like Jacksonville and or the Eagles, even though the Eagles aren't playing as well as they had last season, of course. But the Titans' offense has really been everything but anemic. They're only scoring about 17 a game. But they are right now, you look at the Titans, though, again, they seem to play to the level of competition. Baltimore, on the other hand, they have a really great defense going for them right now. They're only giving up about 15 points per game, and also, which is number 1 in the NFL, number 5 in total D, and their offense has been better than the Titans. They're averaging about 26 a game. But they only put up, I don't remember what it was exactly, but it was very few points against the Browns last week. And I look at it like, well, can this possibly, I don't know if it's going to be a harbinger of things to come for Baltimore in their offense, but it shows that they could have some of these games where they just can't really generate a lot of offense. And now they got to go on the road again, play a Titans team that certainly doesn't want to lose 2 in a row and wants an opportunity to at least maintain a tie for the division lead with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't think they're going to squander it. I like Tennessee at home. Next game, I want to take the New England Patriots to win at home over the Kansas City Chiefs. New England 3-0 at home this year. They're just like a completely different team at home than they are on the road. They'll have rested 10 days. They're going to be seeking retribution from that loss they had last season to Kansas City. You're talking about having Edelman in the pack and Gronkowski. They have their full arsenal on offense, and the defense has looked a little bit better over the past couple weeks. Now, you look at the Kansas City Chiefs. It's a funny thing. It's like Kansas City goes in there 5-0, a flawless record, looking like one of the best teams in the NFL. They're averaging 35 points a game, but a lot of people are going to be picking New England Patriots. A lot of it has to do with that mystique, that aura, the fact that they've been there, they've done this before. They've started off slow in the past and they flourish later on. It's almost like I think a lot of people, I think including me, aren't, despite Kansas City's superior record over the Patriots, can they really beat them head on? Can they actually maybe come out of the AFC when this is all settled? Or is Kansas City just simply a paper champion? I think that's where you have a lot of these questions, and they may be, but we're going to find out in this game. It's a barometer game for both these teams, even though it's relatively early, even though it's going to be the sixth game for both teams. I think you see whoever wins this particular game really could be that team that winds up getting maybe that home field when this is all said and done in the AFC, and which could play dividends in coming out of the AFC. And quarterback Mahomes, he has obviously played sensational. He's been phenomenal, lights out. They put up 30 points against a very vaunted Jacksonville Jaguars defense last week. But I've noticed that Mahomes, after he had a really hot start with the touchdown passes, he hasn't had that many like in the last couple games or so. And I'm wondering if that's going to continue in this game, that little decline with the touchdown passes. We're going to see. But I think it may be something where, I mean, I don't think he's going to throw 4 or 5 TD passes. He may throw 2 in this game, but I don't think it's going to be enough to beat New England. I like New England at home. Last but not least, I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers to win at home over the San Francisco 49ers. You look at Green Bay right now, 6-4-1 at home since 2017. They've been another one of those teams that have been a much different home team than they are on the road. I mean, a lot of teams have that, where they have that great disparity between how they are at home and where they are and how they play on the road. As many of you may know, Mason Crosby missed 4 field goals last week and an extra point. Well, he can miss 5 this week. I think they could still beat the 49ers. Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers and company, I do see them getting this job done. They tied Minnesota in one game at home. They beat Chicago at home in another game, and they throttled Buffalo, shut them down in their other home game, 22-0. You look at San Francisco now. Maybe they are worse than Arizona since they lost to them last week. And they're also -8 in turnover differential. They are just giving up the ball way too many times. I see Green Bay really being very superior in this turnover department in this game. And also coupled, I mean, this is a team just 3-8 on the road since 2017. And running back Matt Breida is going to be questionable in this game. So even if he does play, he might not be at 100%. And I think all this, the fact they're on the road against Green Bay, this all favors Green Bay tremendously. I like Green Bay to win this one decisively at home. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube NFL prediction segment for my 2018 Week 6 NFL picks and analysis. And until next time, people, Edwin Leonard saying, stay well.